Gentlemen, welcome back to the Surplus Bunker. 10,000 rounds. Before I made these changes, I passed about 9,000 rounds out of the original Anderson configured rifle. And we'll talk about the changes I made and the issues that appeared with the Anderson since the last video today. And before you go to the comments and start bashing Anderson, I know a lot of people are not fans of what they're doing over there because, and I'm not going to go light or easy on them today, they have shipped products that are out of spec. They've shipped receivers that are out of spec. There have been issues with some of the things that they do over there. But to give you some context as to why I went with this rifle back in the day, things that I mentioned in the last video as well, I went with Anderson at the recommendation of two friends who had really positive experiences with the AM-15 RF85 models like this one. And they had no issues running steel-cased ammunition through their rifles, and they really grew to like them. So I trusted that this would be a good product when there weren't many competitors on the market to Colt and Smith & Wesson. You had Olympic Arms, and you had Wyndham Weaponry, and those were kind of the big dogs post AWB expiration. A lot of companies who make ARs have come and gone since that time frame, but Anderson is still here, and there's a reason for that. Now, after that 8,000 round mark video, what issues presented themselves with this rifle? None. The gas rings, as I mentioned, I believe in the last video as well, were the only thing that really began to have problems, and the firing pin, retaining pin, had also become bent over time. So I replaced those, and I replaced the firing pin, and that bolt carrier now is an auxiliary, it's a secondary or backup bolt carrier in my collection, and there's no issues with it. The Anderson has performed exceptionally well. So why did I make changes to the rifle? Well, the barrel didn't present any issues. I didn't notice any decrease in accuracy either, and to the naked eye, the bore and the barrel itself, they still look to be in great condition, still bright, still shiny, still holding up very well. The finish on the barrel, I will say on the exterior, there were a few rust spots that popped up over the years, but I simply hit those with a bluing pen, dealt with it, and had no additional problems from there. Where the issues did come up with this rifle is when I finally started to make the changes to it. And I would encourage you, if you have especially a budget AR-15 or really in any big reputable brand, if you didn't put it together yourself, you need to ensure that everything was actually torqued down correctly. Upon disassembly, the rail removed way too easily. The barrel nut was only hand tight. They didn't bother to torque those down at the factory, which was a pretty upsetting revelation, but it also didn't impact the reliability of the rifle over these years. So there is a positive there. But I would encourage you to make sure everything is done correctly, because unfortunately we can't trust any major firearms manufacturer to do the right thing. You'd be really stunned how much stuff comes to market, or things that maybe I even reach out to a manufacturer to, they send me the product, and it's just, maybe you don't even see it on the channel because it wasn't, I don't have enough content to really make any point about it. And there are some other reviews and things I'm working on where I'll unpack that hard fact that quality control is not what it should be. So beyond that, as I said, the Anderson itself though performed amicably. I've had no issues with the bone stock Anderson as it sat, and I had 4 malfunctions in total over the life of this rifle as a true Anderson AM-15. So that is a testament to the quality of the components that they're using. I would really encourage you to do some digging into the RF85 treatment if you're looking at one of the older rifles, maybe on the secondary market. And they do recommend that you lubricate the rifles now. It is an option. I didn't lubricate this for easily the first 5,000 rounds or so, and I'm not exactly sure when I started using lube on this like any other AR-15, but there really was no issue with reliability or anything without lubrication. I felt better about it living in a humid environment, that I should have lubricant, and there should be ways to keep and prevent rust or corrosion from occurring. So that's when I started to kind of move that direction at Anderson's recommendation as well. So let's go ahead and talk about the changes I made to this rifle. I'm going to start with the upper receiver. So we'll start with the optic. I was running a Comp M2 on here for almost the entire time I had the rifle, and unfortunately, the mount seems to be kind of tired after the excessive round count that I put through it, and then who knows how many rounds, because I bought it on the secondary market, I've gone through that mount. So it's pretty cooked and it's no longer holding a 0, but I did have an extra Sig Sauer Romeo X5 laying around, so I threw that on here for now. I would encourage you to look into magnifiers and prism optics and things, or LPVOs. I feel that magnification is really, there's not enough focus on it in the AR space. It's just vital that you have magnification. I really encourage it, especially in a rifle that you intend to use potentially for self-defense. You need to be able to identify what you're pointing your rifle at, right? So this has been excellent with the about 1,000 rounds now I have out of this rifle in the current configuration. Bolt carrier. It is no longer the factory carrier. It is now a chromed BCG from Brownells. I was going to get a Sons of Liberty Gunworks one, but I opted to not do that, just the price point. $330, I want to say, and the Brownells one was significantly less than that. It does clean extremely easily, and of course the hard chrome finish on this is just, it's beefy. I'm impressed, to say the least, so far. So moving a little forward to that, we have the Bear Arms rail. You may remember Bear Arms from Grand Thumb's channel. Asian Phil owns the company, and he sent a thank you note and signed it Asian Phil when I bought this rail from his website. Excellent, excellent rail. The installation was an absolute breeze, and I have no complaints thus far with it. Moving further ahead, we have the Troy fixed front sight post. I've had this the entire time I've had this rifle as well. And then as a placeholder right now, I'm running a Streamlight TLR1, the high lumen output model, until I can get an offset light for this, which is hopefully going to happen. I will have an update video in the near future about the additional changes I'm making to this, and I'll talk a little about some of those changes moving along here. So next we have the Rearden muzzle device on here, because I have run this almost exclusively suppressed, with the exception of about maybe 300 or 400 rounds. Suppressors are definitely a game changer. They're something you should look into. I'll talk about that in a future video as well. And then I have a BCM pencil barrel. It's a mid-length gas system, BCM gas block, and it's been great. I'm extremely happy with this setup. And I would generally say, though, to wait for the sales on Geisley and BCM if you're going to just build a new rifle from the ground up. There's really no reason to start making a lot of these upgrades. I just have a sentimental attachment to the upper and lower on this, and I just don't wanted to keep them in my rotation, because this was my first AR-15. So it was really the first rifle that I spent any significant amount of money on, and it's been something that I keep going back to in my collection, even with all the other firearms that I do have. Now, moving backwards to the lower receiver, I did install a Geisley trigger. Now, that is an upgrade I would highly, highly encourage you to look into. They are extremely economical, and there's just no reason to not pick one of the Blim ones up. They're like $85. They greatly enhance your shooting experience. They are so much better than the mil-spec style triggers that I'm used to. I would very much recommend that you look into those. Now, moving back up onto the upper receiver, I do have a POF Archangel charging handle. I'm still running the military, the Army style Maytech rear sight. Back to the lower, I did install a suppressor weight buffer, and I do still have the Magpul furniture on here that came bone stock with the rifle, and I have been using the attachment points here on the rear as well for my sling. There is an additional QD attachment points on both sides of the Bear Arms rail, and it has been an exceptionally good rail, as I said. So the reason that I made these changes with the round count, it was time. I felt to replace the barrel, though there were no issues really with the Anderson barrel. I didn't notice any decrease in accuracy or anything. I wanted something lighter weight, so I started thinking about, all right, well, I'll just replace the handguard, and then that became, all right, well, I'm going to go ahead and replace the barrel and the whole gas system. And then things evolved from there when I decided that, look, it's time to get a suppressor. It's never been easier. So I went ahead and started poking more into that with CJ's help. I ended up with some Otter Creek suppressors. I highly, highly recommend these. These are truly, truly an awesome product and a game changer for you if you've been shooting unsuppressed for many, many years. and they're just an excellent hearing protection aid. And they also literally protect your brain if you're firing at an indoor range or inside a confined space. I would encourage you to really look into the suppressor market. Now, when you start going down the suppressor rabbit hole, you're going to want to start tuning stuff. I mentioned that suppressor weight buffer. So it's not just the suppressor. Now you have to buy the mounts, and it kind of snowballs from there. But I do want to get a gas busting charging handle for this in the future. I will have an additional update video on this rifle as it continues to evolve, when I eventually get a new optic for this, hopefully within the next few months. And I'm just going to keep running it, and you'll keep getting additional updates from me on that. Now, the other reason I went with the handguard and the barrel that I did, I knew I was going to run it suppressed. It was always kind of the end goal that I was going to get suppressors. I went with a Surefire, a muzzle device on one of my other ARs, and felt that I was going to go that route. But that was before Otter Creek Labs came to the market. So that's something and a brand that I would very highly recommend to you now, having 2 of their cans and just seeing how well they work, having shot CJ's cans, and they're just great, solid performance for the price point as well. There's been some funny social media drama with them lately, torching Q and lack of innovation on Q's part. Super funny stuff if you want to dig into that. But other than that, guys, that's really the latest with the AM-15. It keeps chucking along, and if you have any questions, any recommendations, or things that you want to see on the channel or on this rifle, I'm pretty mixed right now on what weapons light I want to go with next. This is a decent placeholder for now, the TLR1, but I want to get an offset light. Eventually I will get a civilian rated laser aiming module, IR laser. I'm very murky based on the experiences I've had with some gray market stuff, because you can't get it fixed. If something happens to it, you're basically SOL. So it would generally tell you to stick with the civilian rated stuff. They're not as good, obviously. Thank you guys so much for watching. As I said, thank you for all the years of support. I'll have some more videos coming to you in the future as well. Stay tuned for those. Thanks for watching.